Hi guys.
Hey guys,
That's George.
and this is Anthony.
And here's Lily.
I'm Lili.
And we are
Around the fire pit.
Actual fire pit this time.
Oh my god.
You know, you guys requested and asked for some spooky stories from actual George's experiences. So here they are, all of our experiences.
Yeah,
Thanks for your feedback, your comments. We appreciate them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I actually appreciate that you guys gave us some suggestions. And so
On what
like
you
said,
guys want to hear.
for our Embers and Echoes episode, we are gonna be giving out a scary story about my experience, kind of living in a haunted house. Well, it was haunted by my opinion.
All your childhood.
Yeah, for like 18 years of my life, I lived in a
God.
haunted house pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into it, I kind of want to ask Lily and Anthony to share their experiences with any paranormal stuff if they've had any.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What you got, Hee?
so these aren't me. These aren't me. My personal experiences. Okay, these are from my brother and my mother that they said. So for my brother, we were two houses down, so the corner of the neighbors, and we were in the living room, and he's looking towards the backyard. We're like, okay, what is he looking at? And he either says he wants to come in and play, or can I go out and play with him? Implying that there was a little boy in the backyard looking in to the house. And we were just like, no. So that was one. Like, there was obviously nobody in the backyard because we were all inside. So yeah, that's one. And then on my mom, she has a few. So the first one, when she was showering.
This is the current house that y'all are living
Yeah,
at right now.
so the current house that we live in right now. Um, she was showering. She was home alone that day, and so she left the bathroom door slightly open to make sure that she can hear if the doorbell rings or something right in front of us arrive home, she could hear while she's showering. So when she got out the shower, the door was closed, and the crazy thing is that she said she felt like she was being watched, or like there was something in the restroom with her while she was showering. So she was like, okay, whatever. And so that was one, and then it happened again. But she remembered to remember that she left it open, because she forgets everything. So she's like, okay, let me leave it propped open, make sure that there's a good gap that's open. And when she got in the shower, she looked, like opened the curtain, looked to make sure that it was still open before beginning her shower. And once again, she had that feeling that she was being watched, like there was something watching her shower, like something just there. And when she got out the shower, the door was closed. She didn't hear close, nothing, like it was closed. And so I asked her, like, was it the AC? Something like, she's like, no, like I don't even have the AC on, like there's no way. So, and none of us were home. She was home alone. So, yeah, that's crazy. And that's why she has like on the table by the entrance door,
Yeah.
two of those little glasses. Those cups have holy water. So every now and then when we come in or we're leaving, we just like put a little holy water on our forehead.
You've never noticed she rubs a little on her hands before she shakes your hand at the
That's why
entrance?
your hand burns a
I'm
little.
just kidding. Fuera de aquí, Satanás.
Nice try, lady.
No,
Yeah,
God.
those are mine.
No, well, for me, something a little about myself. I don't really like admitting it to people, but unless they're close friends, because usually I'm meant to feel like I'm crazy or like I'm imagining things. But I mean, all through my life, I've always seen like shadow people, or I would see like shadows, and I would like take a second look.
Like
and
the
it's not there.
peekaboos.
Yeah,
They
that.
call them peekaboos,
Mhm.
I think.
And like you see something in the side of your eye, you're like, oh, it's gone. Like that. I'm imagining things, something. What's creepy is whenever you take a double take and it's still there, and then it like dissipates. That's happened. But I mean, even tonight, like everyone was around here, and all of us were here sitting down, and it's dark in this corner. It's like a little
Yeah.
trees and whatnot, and I saw like someone walk that way like 2 steps, and I was like, they actually like took 2 steps. They made the motion. I was like, oh, it's someone. And I was looking around at all of us. I'm like, we're all here. So I took a closer look, and I was like, there's no one there. And I know that I saw something because it blocked out the window. So, I don't know. chills. Ooh, chills right now.
Only one.
And then, so one of my creepiest stories that I've had is living with my friend over here, Miguel at his house. I was just chilling watching TV. I was on my couch, and you know, like pay no mind because it happens all the time. My dog Luna jumps up on the couch and she puts her weight on me or my on my legs or she's laying with me. And so without thinking, I like go to pet her and I like catch nothing but air and there's nothing there. It's just my leg and I'm looking down like because I have my feet up and I'm like, what was that? But I fully felt something put weight at my feet and I remembered Luna's outside. So I was just by myself and I was like, oh, heck no. Instantly got up and walked to the living room and sat next to Miguel and Cassandra and said, I can't be alone right now. But that's the creepiest thing I've ever felt or dealt with.
Yeah.
This
Um,
guy here.
yeah, so I actually lived like I'm a firm believer that it's a haunted location. Very firm believer. And after I tell you the story, you might think so too. To each their own,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna have their own
Yeah,
separate opinion.
you guys make your own judgment
Yeah, but
on all of our
so
stories.
when we moved here, when we first started living here in America, right, immigrant story time. Yeah, the house we lived in, we lived from about when I was about a year and a half to about 19 years old. Um, Kind of give you some background for those of you guys who don't know and aren't familiar with the area. In Texas, a lot of the cities were founded like in the 1840s, 1800s, right? Dallas was no exception. It was founded around the 1840s.
Yeah.
And then Oak Cliff was later founded and incorporated into Dallas, and it was founded in about the 1880s.
Hmm.
The neighborhood where I lived in, most of the houses were built in the 1950s, with about 1,000 being built before 1940.
Yeah.
And I just so happen to be one of the lucky people where my parents moved into. Yeah, unlucky, I guess, unfortunate. Fortunate at the time we had a home, right?
Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough to just stumble across life and just happen to be living in a house that was built in 1921.
That's
Uh,
over 100 years now.
it's 103 years old now.
Jeez.
And at the time, it was good because my parents, didn't have money. We were pretty much poor. It was about $480 or something like that, for rent each month. It was a little white house. It had a decent sized backyard, two bedrooms, small kitchen,
Yeah.
small living room. And me and my brother shared we called it a room, but it was really more like a, I want to call it like an office slash laundry room area, but it was big enough so that you could fit a bunk bed in there, and there was still enough space for us to move around and stuff, right? And me and my brother shared bunk beds up until we were like, let's say 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so eventually, I was a big sleepwalker, and I guess eventually my brother got annoyed, so he took the top bunk bed. But things started happening really early in my childhood in that house. Even before I went to school, I remember when I would wake up in the mornings I'd wake up and lay in bed with my mom.
Yeah.
Um, in the mornings, you could hear the dishes topple over, and we would get up and go check it out, and all the dishes would be fine, just perfectly stacked.
Yeah.
So it
Ugh.
started off, I mean, the innocent things like that, but it was just creepy at the time when you think about it. Um, I'd say the earliest thing I can remember seeing something was probably about at the age of like 4. And I remember my mom was in the shower, taking a shower, and I happened to be in the bathroom,
Yeah.
just waiting for her to get out. And when my mom got out, she had a towel wrapped around her, and I remember she was standing in front of me, and I kept ducking my head, kind of trying to look underneath, past her towel, and she kept looking behind her and asked me, "What are you looking at?" And I would tell her, "I see someone behind you." And my mom would freak out and look behind her and then do one of these. And she'd be like, "What are you talking about? There's nobody behind me." And then I dug down and I could clearly see a pair of legs behind my mom. Like there was someone standing behind her,
Like right behind her, huh?
right behind her.
Oh, jeez.
And I think I kind of carried that with me because long after that, years would pass by, and it always felt like someone was in the bathroom with you while you were showering, just watching you. And it's kind of a scary, very uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the earliest memory I have of someone of seeing something in that house. But there were like instances where it was just constant activity in the house. And some of that constant activity was I would go to sleep at night and lay my head up against the pillow. And it was just about every single night. I remember that minutes into laying my head down on my pillow to go to sleep, I would start to hear scratching noises. It's underneath my bed, scratching,
Creepy
just
as fuck.
scratching noises. And at the time I was really little. I wouldn't say really little, but I was a kid. I was about 8 years old, and I didn't want to check under the bed. Who wants to check under the bed when
I
they hear
still don't
scratching
want to check
noises?
under the bed.
Right? But as I got older, I would work up the courage, and I'd actually peek my head underneath the bed, and that bed was about a foot and a half off of the
Heck
ground.
no, you're a brave 8-year-old.
My mom would have these big plastic boxes where she would stuff documents and shove them underneath the bed. So it was a good foot and a half above the ground, and I would peek underneath the bed and take a look, and there wouldn't be anything underneath the bed. So I was like, maybe it's just mice in the wall, squirrels or something, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd put my head back on the pillow, and then immediately after I would do that, minutes into it, I would just start hearing it again, just scratching noises. It was just about every night. Every night. Another thing that would happen every night was when everyone was asleep, you could hear footsteps in the house. And I'm not talking about like creaking noises. I'm talking about full blown someone walking around pacing inside of the house.
Ugh.
Thudding like
Pacing.
thuds.
Pacing's creepy.
Thuds just. And so when I got older, my dad would tell me like, if you ever hear anything, get in the habit of getting up and checking and investigating, because you don't want to be surprised by someone breaking in one day when you're older. So me, trying to find some logic in it, I'd get up and be like, well, let me see what it is.
Yeah.
And I'd walk all the way to the living room and search for whatever was making those steps. And there would be nobody walking around the house. And why? Because my parents would be in their room asleep, my sister would be in her bed, and my brother would be at the top bunk bed asleep.
Yeah.
So who was walking around at night in the house? We don't know. It was just an unexplained noise that we couldn't figure out what it was. And I wasn't the only one to hear that. My sister would actually talk about that too. Um, but the scariest story is actually the reason behind why I don't like stuffed animals. So when I was a kid, me and my brother had our favorite stuffed animals and toys and stuff. And I had a specific stuffed animal that I really liked, and I would dress him up, and I would put clothes on him, just little t-shirts, pants. I had a cowboy hat that I would stick on him, and I would like smash his head in there so it wouldn't fall off. But my mom noticed that I was like I had an attachment to him, and so I I would play with him all the time. And one day my mom noticed, and she was like, "Hey, I noticed that you're very attached to that stuffed animal toy." And I was like, "Yeah, he's my favorite toy. He's my favorite stuffed animal." And she was like, "Well, I just don't think it's healthy for you to play with him all the time. I wouldn't want something to happen to him, and then, just something happens, and then you have this attachment to this toy." And I was like, no, it's fine. So I
Yeah.
just kept playing with him.
Like something negative.
Yeah, and so me and my brother's and mine's bunk bed, we had it across from a wall where there was a shelf, and that shelf was probably about 4, maybe 6 feet away from the head of our bed.
Yeah.
And so when I would look up, I could see the shelf, because the head of my bed was directly across from the shelf. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I was probably about 8 years old. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and for some reason, I woke up just kind of confused, and I had eye buggers and stuff, like, moles, whatever. And I look up at the shelf, and for some reason, the stuffed animal caught my attention. And I looked up at him. And the thing about stuffed animals is that they're stitched together. So there's no possible way for them to move, because they don't have limbs where they can move.
Yeah.
It's not like an action figure or a doll
There's
or
no
something.
moving parts on it.
There's no moving parts. It's stitched together. How it's stitched is how it should stay all the time. But not this one. This one was different. And I looked up at him. It caught my attention, and its head wasn't in the middle. It was off to the side. And immediately, as soon as my eyes made contact, it just slowly started twisting its head and made contact with me eye to eye. And I remember just being overcome by fear and panic. And I threw the covers over my head, and it was so hot under those covers, but the adrenaline and the fear running through my body made it to where I kept the covers over me all night, and I just had the worst fear, like in my stomach, like the worst feeling, where I was so scared that I was gonna wake up with something, at the head of my bed or something, or
Yeah.
just something. But anyways, morning came, I woke up, and my mom noticed that that morning I didn't want to play with my toy anymore. And she told me, she's like, hey, what's going on? And it was strange for her to not see me play with it. And I was like, I just don't want to play with them anymore. And she was like, well, why? And I was like, I don't want to tell you because you won't believe me. She was like, just tell me what's going on. So I told her, I was like, hey, at night when I was sleeping and I woke up and everyone was asleep, the stuffed animal turned its head at me. And she had the oddest look on her face. She's like, why are you telling me this? Kind of this when you don't want to hear your kids tell you something, you're like, what the heck? But she was like, that's not possible. Maybe you're just imagining it. So she took him from me. And she was like, just don't worry about it anymore. She took him from me, and she was cleaning the living room that morning, and she had him propped up. There, we had a single person like a love couch. No, not love couch. A lazy boy up against
Yeah.
the corner of the wall, so you could see like a whole 180 view of the room. Um, and my mom had the stuffed animal propped up against the sitting on the couch, and she was cleaning. And then later on that day, I saw her put the stuffed animal in a black plastic bag, tie it up, and throw it in a shed that my dad had in the backyard that he built. And that shed had a big, thick chain on it and a big master padlock on it.
Dang.
Yeah, because we had constant break-ins, so my dad would lock up the shed so no one could get in there. And my mom put that bag in there and locked it up. And I had asked her why she did it, and she was like, the thing is I was cleaning the living room, and the whole time I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me.
Oh, hell no.
And it to me it just kind of confirmed like what I saw that night. Um, but anyways, days pass, weeks pass, months pass,
Yeah.
and then one day, the stuffed animal finds its way back into our house, and we couldn't figure out how it got back in there. But it wasn't gonna be me who brought it back in or my mom, but it found its way back into the house. And my mom grabbed that stuffed animal and she threw it straight in the trash, and we never saw it since. Yeah, she should have burned
Yeah,
it,
to
but
be
it's
honest.
just I don't know. There was so many things that happened.
It's like thick black.
Or you
Yeah,
hear it,
like it
screaming.
releases
You
it.
hear like yeah, it's like the screech.
Um, but yeah, that was probably the scariest experience I had in that house. Other than that, when I got older, I started trying to like reason through a lot of the things that were happening in the house. I feel like it made me a really logical thinker because I would hear something, I try to find like the reason
Yeah,
behind it,
like explanation.
an explanation. Yeah, I just didn't want to let things just play in my head as supernatural, right? But when I was older, I would like staying up late at night and watching comedy shows on TV, and so my family was asleep.
As teens do.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, my sister was away for college, so it was just me and my brother and my parents. And my parents were asleep by that time. My brother was in his room asleep, and I was watching Gotham Comedy Live. I think I had just got out the shower. I still remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a blue T-shirt, and some blue Nike shorts that I would wear to wrestling practice. And I was watching TV, and I felt almost like when you feel a tiny bug on you,
Mm.
where it barely grazes the hairs on your skin, and you can feel
Yeah.
it like lightly graze your skin. Um, and I turned around and I was fully expecting to see something on my arm on my left side, where the doorway to the kitchen was at, and was ready to just kind of just brush it off.
Ah!
I was
No.
ready to brush it off, but something caught my eye. The sleeve because it was just a t-shirt. The sleeve on my t-shirt. Ooh.
Oh heck nah.
I don't know. Could be a cat. We hearing some noises behind us. Yeah, it's probably jumping the fence.
Yeah.
Uh,
Timing cat.
yeah. But the t-shirt, the sleeve on the t-shirt was slightly lifted up where I felt the tingly sensation. And immediately, as soon as I noticed it, it started lowering itself towards my skin, where it was touching my skin. And so, me trying to reason through it, I'm like, how can a t-shirt stay up? So I started grabbing the t-shirt and trying to pull it up, and it
Like
would just,
testing it
yeah,
out.
and it would just fall back down on my arm. And so I kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and the shirt wouldn't stay up. And immediately, almost immediately, I knew something had like its fingers, I
Yeah.
guess you could say, instead of my t-shirt like this, and then it just like lightly let it down. And I knew then that something had touched me that night. Just something I couldn't see grabbed me on my arm or touched me.
Yeah.
So it went from being like more like psychological things to physical things in the house when I got older.
Poltergeist? Or is that when it's moving things?
Poltergeist is when it moves things. But it was almost like constant activity in the house. It was also like an atmosphere where it was very thick and heavy and just felt negative. Um, I kind of described it to Anthony earlier as like when you knew you're in trouble and you're gonna get home and you just feel like there's a punishment waiting for you,
Oh
or you're taking an exam and the time is clicking and the teacher's standing behind you just watching you take your exam. And that's
yeah.
what I felt at that house all the time.
He was explaining it to me. He was like, imagine like you've done something wrong and your parents caught you and you have to go home, and then you get home and you just feel that negative pressure and negative energy, like something's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
it got
I was
so
like,
bad.
man, that's crazy.
It got so bad my mom hated staying at the house by herself. And she would have people come over from church and just pray inside of the house, pray for our home, and like put holy water and like oils and stuff that they would get blessed at church. And for a few days the mood in the house would lighten, and then
Go back to.
yeah, excuse me, weeks would pass, and then it would be another heavy, thick atmosphere in there again. But we weren't the only ones to experience it. When we moved out, my sister stayed there for about 2 years, and then she moved into a house that she had bought,
Yeah.
and some friends of her in-laws had moved into the house and they were renting it out. And one day she was at a party for her in-laws, and her sister-in-law came up to her and asked her. She was like, "Hey, you remember the old White House in front of my grandma's house? Because her grandma lived across the street." She's like, it's like, did you ever experience things in there? My sister was like, yeah, all the time. So she was like, well, so and so lives there now. You should ask her and see if she sees things. My sister's like, no way, you go ask her. She's like, all right, we'll both go ask her. So they went and they were asking her about it, and they were like, hey, you know the White House you live in? She's like, yeah. She's like, well, Aurelia used to live there too. It's like she wants to know if you ever saw things in there. And immediately her skin got kind of just like pale, and her eyes got really big. And she was like, well, she's like, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And my sister was like, you know,
Oof.
like try me, like
Yeah, like
go ahead and
bet.
tell me that. And she was like, well, one day my daughter was asleep, and then the room that used to be my sister's, the one in the back, she's like, my daughter was asleep in the room, and she was like kind of woken up, and when she looked up, there was like a black, foggy, cloudy mass
Sam.
floating over her,
Yeah.
and it vanished into thin air and just
Oh,
like
heck no.
disappeared.
That's creepy.
And that was just one of the experiences that they had at the same house where we lived. We never saw that, but we we
It
lived
sounds
through
like
it.
it got worse.
Yeah, and I mean I lived through like 17 years of that, so it sucked living there, man.
Jeez. And I was asking you, I was like, have you ever talked to your sister? Well, you said you talked to your
Yeah,
sisters,
so
but
me and my
like
sister would talk about it all the
your
time,
parents.
but to my parents, it's something that we never really shared. It's kind of just like experiences that all of us had there.
Yeah.
But my family wasn't the kind of family where we would talk about things. It was just kind of like, hey, just suck it up and live through it. And we couldn't do anything about it at the end of the day.
Yeah. You're just a kid living there. Like you
Yeah.
have no say in
And
it.
not just that, but we were living in probably like one of the only places where my parents could afford to live.
Mm,
So it's not like we could just pack up our things and leave. We just
yeah.
had to live with
That
it.
wasn't an option.
Um, but even looking back on it, no, I've still haven't asked my parents to see if they experienced anything in that
Wow.
house.
They remember anything or maybe they chose not to tell y'all things to like not
Oh,
scare y'all.
sure.
Oh yeah.
But little do they know, like, yeah, we're already experiencing
Experiencing
things.
your own things.
Yeah.
Or like look into the history
Yeah.
of that land, because that's
It could be the land too. Yeah.
Yeah.
like things stay, or I don't know, something buried there or something.
Yeah, and
Because that
it's
just
an old
doesn't
house.
happen because of nothing.
But you know, the crazy thing is, like, we lived in it for so long, we just began to normalize everything, and
That's
like this is
crazy.
normal to experience
That's
this.
so crazy.
It's normal to It's normal to hear scratching under your bed. It's normal to hear footsteps inside of the house. It's normal to hear the dishes falling over. You know, it's normal to shower and feel like someone's watching you the whole time.
If I keep them shut for too long, something's gonna be there when I open my eyes.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed my views now that I'm older, like on, the paranormal and stuff. We were talking about it the other day, and I was telling him that one thing I will never do if, God ever gives me kids, is that I will never just dismiss my kids' claims to, like, I saw something that scared me, because I lived through it,
Yeah. And you've been through that where your
Yeah.
parents like dismissed them.
Yeah.
That's creepy, bro. Heck no.
But that was my experience, living in a house that was haunted for about 17 years, and I stand firm on believing that that house was haunted and that there was
Probably
something
still
more.
is to this
Yeah.
day. It's still there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
The house
crazy
is
to
still
me that
there.
like for me, I'm like, what else? Because you were telling me this, and you had forgotten that you heard like heavy thuds.
Yeah.
As you were talking more and more about it, you started remembering things.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
man, like what else is your like mind blocking from you remembering things?
Yeah.
That's
It's almost like it
creepy.
was trying to protect me from like
Yeah,
all the past experiences.
like even the worst things too.
Yeah.
That's creepy, bro.
I don't know what I would do if I would hear that, because I stay up pretty late sometimes, and where my room is at in the house, like
Mhm.
things echo down the hall,
Yeah.
so I can hear
Dang.
stuff pretty well. But if I was to ever, I don't know, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I wouldn't want to live through twice.
What do you mean? You wouldn't buy it?
No.
Buy the house?
Nah, I don't think I'd live in it again.
Actually, you were telling me that it's a rental property, so
Yeah, it is a
maybe
rental
after like a
property.
couple hundred likes, 1,000 views, we'll rent it and have a whole episode there or something.
Yeah.
Huh?
The lights just.
They did, huh?
Yeah. Ooh.
Even
That's quite a
creepier.
note to end it on, huh?
Right? For real. Lights
But
turn off.
hopefully we get another spooky episode out to y'all this week and
For
the week,
Halloween.
yeah, for Halloween.
And I
Not
have
including this one. We want to have at least 2 more
Yeah,
episodes
2
out
more.
for Embers and Echoes.
It's Halloween. Pardon my Valentine's Day blanket.
But of course, leave us like your guys' feedback, comments,
Or your experiences.
or your
Yeah.
To
experiences.
read in the next video and share.
I would love to hear some creepy
Yeah.
stories from you guys, honestly.
Yeah, if you guys leave them, we'll read them out loud on our next podcast and we'll talk about them. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
A way of engaging with y'all.
Yeah.
Or if it's too long to put in the comments, put y'all's email,
Oh man.
and then that way they could email it over.
I mean, we also have we have a TikTok, Instagram,
Or
Facebook.
DM it. Send
Yeah,
it in a
let
direct
us know.
message. Yep.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, guys.
Alrighty. Well, that's George.
And this is Anthony.
And we are around the
the
fire
Fire Pit.
pit.
And I'm Lily. Bye.
Oh, plus
Oh, Lily.
Plus Lily.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.